Last month, Esquire posted an article on the 25 best superhero movies of all time. As someone that spends way too much time making lists,
I'm always making lists.
in particular about superhero movies, a bunch of people sent it to me and asked my opinion about it. So it's time for another reaction time. I'm going to be reacting to Esquire's list of the 25 best superhero movies of all time. As we go into this, I've got two questions for me. For me? No, for you. Two questions for you. What was the biggest omission from the list? The movie that you're like, I can't believe they didn't include this movie? And second, what is the most insane movie they included in the list? I want to know your picks for the craziest inclusions and exclusions from this list. With all of that said, let's just dive right into this thing with their picks for the 25 best superhero movies of all time. And they say this: from Superman to The Dark Knight, these are the movies that hold true staying power. That will be one of our major criteria. Whenever you go into these, whenever you make a list of the best comic book movies of all time, you know, some of it's a little bit personal, some of it's taste, some of it is acclaim, some of it is box office, what made the biggest splash, all of that fun stuff. But they specifically brought in this concept of true staying power. As we go through the list, remember they said that, and then think what movies weren't included and which movies were included on this list. And let's get started. Coming in at number 25 on their list, they kick it off with Thunderbolts. True staying power. A movie that came out this year. Now, whether you loved the movie, whether you hated the movie, you thought it was fantastic, whatever, if you start off by using staying power as your slogan for your pitch sentence, your kickoff, like, what a staying power, you probably should not pick the movie that came out 2 months prior. as the test there, staying power, Thunderbolts has not passed the test yet. It just came out. Now, as for me, I've been very positive about this movie, that I liked that it was an MCU film that was actually about something, used practical effects, took inspiration from, Michael Gondry films with like dream logic, surrealist elements while being classic MCU at the same time. Very positive on the movie. But when you're talking about the 25 best comic book movies of all time that made the biggest splash, the biggest impact, had staying power, it feels so extraordinarily premature to include this movie right here. In particular, as we go through this list and we see all the movies that did not make the cut, everything, all the other Marvel movies in particular, where we go, hey, where's this, and this? And you go, this one made it? It doesn't add up. And this is why a lot of times I don't give out a lot of A+, I don't give 10 out of 10s to new movies, because when you're talking about the best of all time, those movies that get the top scores, I feel a lot of times that needs to be earned over time and being like, oh, it was refreshing, or the word they used, oh, it was it reinvigorated the franchise. Like, well, let's see. Let's see how this holds up. So, including this one, especially in light of the stuff they didn't include, I don't know. Number 24, Shazam. I really enjoy Shazam. It's, superhero movie big. What is Zachary Levi actually really good at? Playing a man-child. There's a lot in there that I really enjoy. But when you look at which DC movies are not going to be on this list, just remember, keep thinking, Shazam's on the list. Shazam's on the list. And then look at what doesn't make the cut. And just looking at DC movies, comparing it to its own category, and we're going for this guy right here. it's an odd inclusion. I like, you want to change a pace. When you make lists like this, as the person that makes lists like this all the time, you want to bring something different. You don't want to just all have the same type of characters, the A-listers, the biggest hits. You want to have a change of pace and have a little personality in your list. But top 25 for Shazam, I'm just not seeing it. 23. Super. If you don't know what Super is, this is the superhero movie that James Gunn did that got him the job to do Guardians of the Galaxy. And it is freaking hardcore. Like, it is a dark comedy. Like, he's running around smashing people's heads with a wrench as a mentally unstable man trying to do the right thing. Like, it is like so dark in its humor. This is where when like James Gunn gets fired over mean tweets that he made at the same time period he made this movie. It's like, did you even watch the movie Super? Like, this is like a movie that the content of the movie itself could potentially have gotten him canceled in the year 2018, 2019. That's how he got the job working for Mickey Mouse. But once again, this is not a list that has 5 James Gunn movies on it. And you think he's done 3 Guardians movies. I get the published date on this article, I believe, is after Superman came out, Suicide Squad. It doesn't have 5 of them. It's going to end up having 2. And one of them is Super. Hey, it's different. It's unique. You don't want it to just be comic book superhero adaptations. You want to bring in some original comic book superhero stories. That's what this is, and it's very different. Top 25, maybe it's just too dark for me. I don't see this one as top 25, not by quite a bit. And considering the James Gunn superhero movies that were excluded to include Super, I don't see it. 22, Thor Ragnarok. I haven't made my own top 25 superhero movies, so I'm not quite sure if Thor Ragnarok would crack the list, but I don't have a problem with this one. I don't have any gigantic issues seeing Thor Ragnarok on this list. It is a very entertaining superhero movie that brings in a lot of Flash Gordon campiness, really brought some life to the Thor franchise, reinvented the character in a way that I thoroughly enjoyed, and it still does have emotion and heart in it. So I have no issues with this one, in particular because it's not particularly high on the list. Hey, I'm cool with it. 21, Zack Snyder's Watchmen. Kind of an interesting one because this is a pretty polarizing film. While Watchmen, the graphic novel, is one of the most celebrated graphic novels of all time as kind of this, deconstruction of superhero mythos at the time, the movie was polarizing. And some people loved it, some people hated it. Like so many Zack Snyder movies, there's multiple cuts. In the case of this one, there's 3 different cuts. And one of them is the theatrical cut that took too much out of it. Then there's like this ultimate cut that has Fear the Black Freighter or whatever. There's this pirate story that's in the graphic novel, and they incorporate a full animated movie into Watchmen, which I don't think that translates properly. And then there's the director's cut that's probably the better version of it. I'm glad this one's on here. I would be team include Watchmen. Once again, if I don't have my own top 25, so I don't know if it's in there or not, but I see this and I go, I think that this is worth being in here. It's a movie that came out a little bit too soon. Avengers hadn't come out yet, but we're doing the movie deconstructing superhero team-up movies. Like, it happened in the comics, decades and decades and decades and decades ago. So Watchmen in the 80s was a commentary on something that had taken place in the comic books. But the movie came out before the comic book movie genre had gotten to the point in time where this made sense as a counterbalance, as the commentary on the genre. And so it's ahead of its time, and not everybody loved it. I'm glad it's on the list. Number 20, Superman 2. This is a complex one for me. This is one of the movies I grew up on. It's formative for me. If staying power is our criteria, Superman 1 and 2 had staying power, massive influence, and like they were the two comic book blockbusters for the first 7 years of my life, and then we got Batman. But like this, like incredibly important films for the genre. Superman 2, though, is a film where we don't really have the definitive correct version of it, because it was 70% shot by Richard Donner, then he was fired, and then new director came in, reshot half the movie, replaced him, and he had some really wacky ideas. Richard Donner, 25 years later, finished his cut, but it's a little bit of a Frankenstein monster, literally used test footage in his version of it. I feel like if we had Richard Donner's actual version of this movie, he really completed it, didn't reuse the ending of the first movie, then potentially I would think this movie should be on the list. In its current form, I think it's a little bit too flawed of a film to make sense to be included. 19, Avengers Endgame. Of course, Avengers Endgame should be on this list, but why is it number 19? Like, you're talking about staying power, a movie that like had ripples. If ever there was a movie that made an impact for the genre, especially in the modern era, obviously it's Avengers Endgame. For 15 minutes, it was the highest grossing movie of all time. It was a cultural event. You put all that together, I just feel like you just have to have this one higher up on the list. So of course it should be here, but I would say it should be higher up on the list for all of the incredibly obvious reasons. Number 18, Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2, the other James Gunn film on this list. If you're only going to put 2 James Gunn superhero movies on your list of the 25 best superhero movies of all time, I think they picked my 2 least favorite James Gunn superhero movies, because I would easily pick Guardians 1, Guardians 3, or Superman, or The Suicide Squad over Guardians 2 or Super. And at least I can respect Super being an original film. So I get that one. I wouldn't do it, not by a lot, but I get it. Including Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2, like, I've never seen it. I understand people liking the movie. That doesn't confuse me. But when people put it on that top tier, like better than the original Guardians, by far is best, I just don't get it. It's a structurally bizarre film that you don't know, like the characters don't know that they're in the story until they're in the third act, when the villain is revealed to be Ego. It's very bizarre, very tonally uneven film. So I just have never understood the people that are hardcore Guardians 2 lovers. And if we get 2 James Gunn movies on this list, which I'm totally fine with 2 James Gunns cracking into the top 25, but why on earth would you pick these 2? Here's an interesting one. Shin Kamen Rider. I have not seen this movie. I don't know if I've even heard of this movie. It is a Japanese film. I guess they describe it. Imagine if Cronenberg directed Spider-Man. And it's written and directed by the Evangelion creator. I don't know how to say his name. So I can't really comment on the film. I do love that they're not limiting it to Hollywood. They're not limiting it to just American superheroes. So love that they're including other superheroes into the mix. But I can't really comment. And as soon as you start saying we're going global, all history of superheroes, I just don't know that this is the one that makes the most sense when you're using staying power as your metric. But at the same, because this was 2 years ago, and I don't even think I heard about it. But I haven't seen it, so I can't comment on its quality, obviously. But I'm totally, I'm very much glad that they have something that's not just American. Number 16, Hellboy. Guillermo del Toro's Hellboy. I'm not a big Hellboy person, but I have no objection to Hellboy being on this list. Once again, expanding beyond just Marvel and DC when we've got some of the other Marvel or other comic book adaptations in there, some originals. I'm all for it. Hellboy is beloved. There's a lot of people love Hellboy 2 even more than Hellboy 1. And so bringing Hellboy into the mix, I've got no objection to it. I wouldn't do it myself. I've never been the Hellboy guy. So I probably would have preferred maybe being in the 20s because it's just not my thing. But also glad that we're having some variety in the list, with some Dark Horse in there. Number 15, this is interesting. Generally speaking, like when I have Captain America Winter Soldier at number 7 or 8 on my MCU ranking, people go insane. You're crazy. That's your hottest take that you just say that it's great, that you don't have it as number 1. Like that's a comment I get all the time. You only think it's great. This is now greatest of all time list, but on their list, they only have it at number 15. So I feel vindicated a little bit with their placement on this one. But once again, if you're talking about staying power, here we are over a decade later. People still say this is one of the best. They still point at it as the mature Marvel movies. Even yesterday, new report came out, Spider-Man Brave New Day is supposed to be the Winter Soldier of Spider-Man movies, which I don't even know what that means exactly. But that's the Marvel point of reference that we use when, the Dark Knight, this is the Dark Knight of DC movies. That's what we do with the Winter Soldier over 10 years later and a whole lot of Marvel movies later, but they only have it number 15 on the list. That's interesting. I personally don't think it's crazy to have it at number 15 on the list, but I imagine a lot of other people too. Another one glad to see on the list, The Crow. This is a film that I did a pretty big Crow deep dive last year. I didn't even cover it as much as I wanted to, considering how much time I spent diving into the world of The Crow last year and watching all the direct-to-video movies and everything like that. I went to go see it in the theater for its 30th anniversary. But like a comic book movie that truly has its own feel and aesthetic. It is this 90s goth revenge film. The production design, the use of miniatures for the city, just everything about it feels otherworldly. And once again, just a movie that absolutely has stood the test of time, that you can watch it now and like, we don't use miniatures, so in that sense it feels dated, but it still looks really good. And the music is very 1994, but it fits the movie that you're watching. So otherwise, it's like a timeless movie just because of the way that it's kind of designed. So love to see The Crow on here. Number 13, Logan. Great film. Feels a bit low on the list to me, not having it in the top 10. Little bit of a hot take, some people might say. But yeah, I mean, just a great send-off for the character that basically built the Fox X-Men universe. And they did it. They pulled it off. They sent him off in a way that people went, you just ended on a high note. Well done. So much so that when they said we're going to bring him back for Deadpool and Wolverine, people were like, getting pitchforks going to kill him. Like I did. Number 12, The Batman. I think this one is placed too high. As someone that loved The Batman, loved that we got a detective story. In particular, when you see some movies that won't be in the top 10, and you look at this is ahead of Logan, I look back on time with a few years to reflect on The Batman, and I go, there's a lot there that I love, but I don't feel like it's quite as special of a movie as something like a Logan. The idea that The Batman is many spots ahead of Endgame, and you talk about staying power, I don't feel like The Batman has nearly had the staying power. I mean, of course, of Endgame, of course not, but like it doesn't feel like it's had that strong of an impact. Maybe some of that is the nature of, when it came out during COVID. Some of that is just the long delayed sequel. And, when you have a sequel and it's not just one movie, it's this continuing universe, it feels bigger. But it also did have a TV series spinoff, The Penguin, starring Colin Farrell. And its ripples just don't feel as big as maybe they should be. So I don't think I would mind this one being on the list, but being in the top half of the list, I think that is way too high for the Batman, considering, and even the third act I don't think is particularly strong for the movie. So I don't think it should be this high. Number 11, Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse. No objection here. Absolutely feel that this is a movie that should be somewhere on this list, and I don't even mind that it's pretty high on the list. You're talking about a film that is one of the most comic book movies of all time. Celebration of Spider-Man, multiverse done in a way that was really satisfying and didn't just feel like a cameo fest or guest, key jangling, anything like that. Like, just like a really solid story that has multiple great Spider-Man messages inside of it, that is also just great as an animated film. So no objection here. Absolutely one of the best ones out there. And a movie that with time, its impact only feels like it gets bigger and bigger. It wasn't a huge hit. It didn't make the biggest ripples. And maybe some of this is the sequel effect of, we have had a follow-up that was also beloved. But like, my kids now, like, this is one of the movies that shapes their feelings, thinking on Spider-Man, radically popularized Spider-Gwen to the general public. Of course, catapulted Miles Morales to popularity with the general public. So just a movie that, like, with time, it feels like it really made an impact. Bringing us into the top 10, Batman 1989. This is a film I have a very complex relationship with. In terms of just raw, pure storytelling, the quality of the script, I don't think we are talking about a top 25 movie here. If you're talking about a movie with staying power and impact, of course. I've said this a zillion times before, but this movie right here is a pivotal piece of my childhood. It's one of the first movies I remember going to the theater. I still, right over there, have my collection, a full set of the Batman 1989 trading cards, Batman and Batman Returns. I was there for Batmania 89. Like, it truly was a phenomenon in a way that you probably can't ever see again. Endgame is probably the closest you can experience within the last decade. But even that was kind of a different thing, because that was the culmination of 10 years of storytelling, versus Batman 89 came out and it just dominated popular culture as a singular film and event. So, like, if you watch the movie on like a storytelling script level, it's very peculiar. Like, Batman as a character, Bruce Wayne as a character, is barely in the first 30 minutes. It's very, like, kind of is very episodic in the way it tells its middle act. It's like, then the Joker did this thing that was defeated. Then this thing happened. And you could almost like move the pieces around in a different order and it wouldn't matter. It's just little hijinks that he did. It's like montaging through the plot. It's very peculiar. But a movie that, right there with Superman 78, those were the only comic book movies that were out there that were good. Superman too, but obviously that's tied to Superman. Only ones that were good for the first 20 years of my life. And I was born in 1981. So that's pretty wild. And it, like, is a film that even artistically, it had a vision, it had a style. It's very Batman, but it's very Tim Burton, and has a phenomenal score. But man, the script is weird. We have X2 X-Men United. I'm not as big on X2 X-Men United as a lot of people are, but no real objection here. No, I'm not going to fight it too much. I'd put it in the teens. I wouldn't put it in the top 10. If we're going to put in, I could totally understand one of our X-Men movies being in here. Totally get it. Those are incredibly important movies in the history of the comic book movie genre. Like, I remember, I was a senior in high school, like, we're doing an X-Men movie, and like, people my age, we watched X-Men the animated series when we were in the 5th grade, and then when we were seniors, they were going to finally do a movie, and it was actually good. And these pivotal pieces in creating the modern era of comic book movies, and then X-Men 2 is better than the first X-Men. So on that impact, staying level criteria, I get it. A little high for me, but I totally get it. Number 8, M. Night Shyamalan's Unbreakable. This is a correct answer. This is just, you got this one right. This belongs in the top 10. This is my favorite M. Night Shyamalan film. I love stories of becoming, and that's what this is. It's a two great character studies at the exact same time, designed to be a character study that's two sides of a coin. Just such a powerful film. And some people don't like the way it plays out in the final minutes. I think the final minutes, the resolution of this film is just phenomenal. And because it's not an action movie, it's a character film, and it ends on the ultimate character revelations within the film. Absolutely belongs in the top 10. Love to see it. This is the of things that could be controversial on this list, this is the one that I'm like, yes, well done. Number 7, Wonder Woman. Absolutely belongs in the top 25. No objection there. A movie the sort of film that, like, my wife gets really burned out on comic book movies. She never would have said, I want a Wonder Woman movie. And then she watched it and she was like, the kind of person, like, I never realized how much I needed to see a movie like this. Like, that's what my wife, casual movie fan, casual comic book movie fan, sees more than most people just because she's married to me, watched this movie, and it meant a lot to her. So absolutely belongs in the top 25. I wouldn't put it in the top 10. A little bit of that, once again, is the third act. Doesn't fully, like, it turns into monologuing followed by mandatory CGI fight, and there's a better version that this movie could have resolved, that merged our stories together, that was less talky but also felt less cliche fight, like whatever the blend of the two that is less clunky. But I mean, the chemistry between Pine and Gal is top notch. It's a love story that you buy into, even though it's a weekend romance. There's just enough Zack Snyder influence on the action for it to be awesome without it for being over the top. In particular, certain places like the No Man's Land sequence is just phenomenal. So a movie, absolute staying power. I wouldn't put in the top 10, so maybe a little bit too high for me, but only a little bit too high. Number 6, Black Panther. Another one I feel kind of has to be on your list if you're talking about staying power and you've got the comic book movie nominated for Best Picture. I think right there, it kind of locks in its spot if that's what you're going to say as a top value set for your list. I mean, I do think it's one of the better, more mature films in the MCU with kind of a Shakespearean tragedy combined with war rhinos and all the fun that you get with an MCU film. Little bit high for me because I do think that not everything fully works and there's some spotty CGI, and it's a film that I understand is like cultural impact. I think is better than some of the specific mechanics and execution of it. So I wouldn't have that in the top 10, but on the list totally makes sense to me. Number 5, The Incredibles, and no argument here. This is a beloved Pixar film that, many people consider it the best Fantastic Four movie that we've ever gotten. That it's original superheroes. It is a really inventive blend of classic superhero action with this retro 1960s aesthetic to it, while having a spy movie vibe at the same time. It is a movie that kids love, but it's about a midlife crisis. Like, it is just a film that is astoundingly well crafted to be broadly accessible. Anyone can enjoy this film. Anyone can connect with it, laugh at it, have a good time, while it's actually exploring human things. Like, it touches on real stuff in the way that just classic Pixar used to be able to do seemingly so effortlessly while being groundbreaking animation. No objection to its inclusion in the top 5. Makes total sense to me. Number 4, we have The Avengers. I'm not going to put this one quite this high on the list, in particular because of movies that I do kind of put higher on my list than this film. But at the same time, how can you argue with the impact of the original Avengers? Like, if you were there in 2012, this movie just made ripples. And it had doubters. I was not someone that was completely sold on this movie based on the trailers, based on Joss Whedon. As someone that has the full box sets of Angel, Buffy the Vampire Slayer, Firefly, and Dollhouse, I wasn't sold that he was the right guy to do the Avengers because it's gone from television to big, gigantic blockbuster with something we've never seen before, and the trailers didn't fully sell me, and then they cracked the code, and we're talking about lasting impact, movies that made ripples. Of course, on all of those levels, this one belongs way high up on the list. I probably would have it more around like 10 or something like that. But of course, this is a movie that belongs on a list like this. Moving into our top 3, what do we have? The Dark Knight. No surprise to see this one on the list. Christopher Nolan's second Batman film, widely regarded, almost universally regarded as one of the best comic book movies of all time. There actually is starting to be a Twitter pushback, which it's kind of weird to see, being around long enough in the online discourse of just 15 years of everybody put The Dark Knight up on a pedestal. I felt like I was one of its biggest critics, only saying it was great, but being like, here's a few things I didn't think was great about it. People like, how dare you criticize The Dark Knight? It's the best ever. And then there's been this shift over the last few years where there's this Twitter pushback that's kind of like, the only thing elevating that movie is Heath Ledger's performance, which is a crazy take. That if you think the only thing interesting about that movie is Heath Ledger's performance, that is crazy to me. But I say that as someone that back in the day was praising Aaron for Two-Face and Harvey Dent over Heath back in the day. So to be clear, I've always been like, Heath's fantastic in the movie. He's not the only one that's fantastic in this movie, though. There are many people overlooked. But the idea that they made a Batman movie that's inspired by Heat and all these crime thrillers. A lot of my issues with so many modern blockbusters, some of what's going on with the MCU, a lot of what's going on with Star Wars, is that it is creative inbreeding. This franchise is not inspired by things outside, it's inspired by the inside that we're pulling from ourselves. Modern Star Wars is inspired by old Star Wars, whereas George Lucas was inspired by all this other stuff. Christopher Nolan, David Goyer, they were reading The Long Halloween. They were reading Batman Year One. And then they went, but what are these other things we can pull into the genre? And because of that, they made a movie that cut through, was celebrated. Oh yeah, it's also made by the top director of our time, Christopher Nolan. Of course it belongs on the list. The question is only, is top 3 good enough, or should it be even higher up on the list? Number 2 on the list, Spider-Man 2. Between Dark Knight and Spider-Man 2, I would absolutely put Dark Knight above Spider-Man 2, but I would put Spider-Man above Spider-Man 2. So, I am, one of my hottest takes is Spider-Man 2 is only great, not best of all time. I prefer Spider-Man to Spider-Man 2. That's one of my hottest takes that people think I'm insane for, because I've just never been crazy about the part where the way that he loses his powers. I've just never bought into it. It's never worked for me as well as the rest of the film, because the rest of the film is the best of all time. And then there's this major plot line that I don't like the way that it was done. But from there, I mean, there's so many fantastic things in this movie. The train sequence, I love the reveal of MJ discovering who he really is, so perfect. And it doesn't need dialogue, just looks wonderfully acted, wonderfully directed. Bravo, A+ all around for everybody. But a couple things that hold it back for me. So I wouldn't have Spider-Man 2 in my top 10. I don't know if it would be in the top 25, but I haven't made the list. Great movie. Look around. I've said it's great many times, but I also think there's multiple great Spider-Man movies. We've only got one movie left. And if you're talking about staying power, there's one movie that obviously would be number one on this list. Of course, it is Richard Donner's Superman 1978. And to me, this belongs at number one. As much bias as you can have, this is the superhero movie that I grew up with. I had the Superman shirt. I didn't get, Batman until I was 7 years old. And so all I had was Superman 1 and 2 as good superhero movies. And, we had it recorded off television. There were extra scenes in it. I didn't even know there were extra scenes that weren't in the theater. And it laid the foundation. Kevin Feige said they rewatch Superman the movie every time they make an MCU film. Christopher Nolan has said this is the movie that is responsible for the whole genre. It is the movie that truly invented the genre as we know it. That some people went, hey, what if we treated these beloved characters seriously? So they're not just for kids. People have grown up on them. They're now grown-ups. Let's do it seriously. So they got the guy that did The Godfather to write the script for it, and they got The Godfather himself to play Jor-El. Like, they took it that seriously. The pieces all came together, and they just made a movie that changed cinematic history, that changed the trajectory of my life. Of course, this should be number one, without question. I think that this is the easy, obvious movie that should be here. Now that we've said all of that, we've made it through the list, my thoughts of which ones were wacky and weird. Just like, I didn't even do a comprehensive list of everything that wasn't on here, but no Blade. Pretty important movie. And the second one was done by Guillermo del Toro. A lot of people think it's better than the first one. No Blade. But we got Big, or Big is a superhero movie, Shazam. No Infinity War. No Tom Holland Spider-Man movies at all. No Spider-Man No Way Home. No Iron Man, the movie that launched the MCU. Talking about staying power, launched the MCU. Not included on the list. Across the Spider-Verse. Is that the highest rated Spider-Man movie on Rotten Tomatoes? It might be. Incredibly celebrated film. Not on the list. More polarizing, Joker. First R-rated movie to make $1 billion. I can understand it not being on the list, but when some of these other films are on there, I'm going like, where's Joker? No Deadpool movies. All three Deadpool movies were the highest grossing R-rated movie of all time when they came out. Talk about staying power. Talk about making ripples, making an impact. Back to back to back, highest grossing R-rated movie of all time. Deadpool, where is he? Iron Man, not on here. That's the best MCU movie by a mile. Craziest inclusions, Shazam, Thunderbolts, Guardians Volume 2. Yeah, and like if they just wanted a representative Guardians sample and Guardians 2 is their favorite, maybe I can see some logic in it, but it's just really tough for me. Thunderbolts, I just think it's too soon. And Shazam, that level of praise for Shazam, I don't get it all. On the DC side, Shazam, I don't agree should be there. I think Aquaman could be since it made $1 billion in box office and Momoa actually made the Aquaman character cool. Yeah, highest grossing DC movie of all time. Outgrossed The Dark Knight. Aquaman outgrossed Batman. Talk about staying power, making splashes. Splashes, Aquaman. Oh yeah, Man of Steel's not on here. Polarizing film. That's what's interesting is that they did include Watchmen, but not Man of Steel and not Zack Snyder's Justice League. Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles 1990 would definitely be on there for me. I think you can argue about the definition of superhero movies. When I did a short a couple years ago on top superhero movies, I had Ninja Turtles 1990 at number 10. I had it on my list. So totally agree with you there. You could debate whether it's a superhero story, but they're wearing masks, they're fighting crime. Most of these clips are pulled from my Patreon live streams. I do about 6 live streams every single month. For $2 per month, $20 per year, you can get access to all the exclusive videos and live streams. For $5 per month, you get your name on my end card. At the top tier, you get a 30-minute video chat with me each month. The link down below in the description has more information.